Hello, good evening, televiewers. Welcome to another edition of The Point. And this day, we are going to make a point with Barrister Felix Kongo Agbo, who is the director, founder, visionary of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy for Africa. He is the pioneer president of the BAND Consortium, and is the former president of the Faco Lawyers Association. He is very active in civil society activities in Cameroon and out of the country. He's our guest for the program this evening. We are going to be talking with him on the life sentence handed down by the military court on the Ambazonian leaders. We equally are going to be discussing on the lockdown as declared by the different factions of the pro-independence fighters or activists. We equally are going to briefly talk about the Back to School campaign, actually that he engaged alongside other civil society organizations too. We saw a very, very huge involvement of the states through MPs and other ministers who went to the Northwest and Southwest region. We look at the possible impact of that outing. Good evening, Barrister, and welcome.
Good evening, Leonard. Thanks for inviting me today.
All the way from Boya, we are glad you arrived Douala safely. My first question to you has to do with the sentencing of Ayub Tabe and 9 others. Did you, while observing the whole process, the judicial process, think that it was going to end the way it ended, with a life sentence?
Well, I think that the decision, the timing of the decision took almost everybody by ambush. Nobody was expecting the decision when it was taken, and the fact that the lawyers had walked out of the court and the accused persons were trying to get an adjournment, the decision was something that was very surprising. But equally also, the life imprisonment, I really didn't see it coming. I didn't see the life imprisonment coming. It's true that in a way government wants to assert its authority to prove that they are the strong people, but I personally did not see that decision coming at this particular point in time.
Okay. Why did you not expect this? At least the fact that the government has imprisoned former ministers, former directors. Why did you expect the government not to hand down a life sentence for persons who have already declared the intention to want to divide the nation?
Well, you see, the law does not exist in a vacuum. We take into consideration other things, you know. I think the president had tweeted some time ago that talked about we should try to move forward. We should forget about the past. We should forgive each other, and we're trying to build. And equally also the fact that there was a pre-dialogue that started in Switzerland, and the clamor by those civil societies, the clergy, and politicians in Cameroon, and those and also the international community for the need for an all-inclusive dialogue. I personally felt that the decision giving them a life sentence was very bad. You know, I didn't expect that kind of heavy penalty. I thought they could use the nolle prosequi that was used against us as provided in the Military Justice Code of July 2017 to try to see how they could release them as part of a comprehensive peace process.
Okay. Now, do you consider yourself lucky that you did not go through this process and that the president had to intervene to let you out, or you would have wished to go through the process and find yourself where you are because of what you have been fighting for?
Well, the first thing is that I don't want to say I was lucky. The first thing is that there was no reason to arrest me. That's the first thing. I didn't commit any crime. At no point in time did myself and the other leaders of the consortium did preach violence. At no point in time did we talk about separation, secession, which was one of the charges. At no point in time did we talk. Could you say we were terrorizing the civilian population, or we did things which were contrary to the 2014 anti-terrorism law? I believe that we were arrested because of political reasons. We were arrested because government felt that we had become so powerful. So I don't think the first thing is that why was I arrested? Why were we arrested? We were not supposed to be arrested first. But I think also God works in miraculous ways. And he understands, and I think God knows that we were not fighting, whatever we're doing, we're not doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for the common good of the people. And during our days of the consortium, money had not gotten involved in the whole struggle. Political power or to show that we're strong wasn't part of what we're doing. It was the love of our people to fight against the history of suppression and oppression and marginalization. That's what we're basically doing.
Okay, Barrister, how does the sentencing change? Is it going to change anything as far as the struggle is concerned, be it in the camp of the government or that of the separatists? What is going to change?
Well, I think for the time being, within the short term, we will like in terms of process, because these are leaders who have followed, who people believe in what they say, and to just sentence them for life means that you're pushing those who are their supporters to the world to react. You can already see what is happening on the ground. I'm just coming in from Boya. You could see the exodus from the town as a result of the sentencing and the lockdown. So it will have an impact, but also probably it might affect the internal organization of the various groups that belong. I am not in the group, so I cannot speak with certainty what is happening in their various groupings. But I think that it will affect the way they manage things. But at the end of the day, the problem is that it would affect the peace process.
Yeah, you think that there is a process with the timing, because you say so, that the timing is wrong. The fact that the government actually considered timing wrong or saw the dangers of passing this sentence at this time, what is the key message that the government is passing through to the Cameroonian community, the separatist camp, and the international community through this sentence?
Well, the timing, to me personally, I think the timing was wrong, because this is a moment where people have been clamoring for kids to go back to school. That was gaining momentum. And that, to be honest, even some of the separatists were panicking, because for the first time, the Anglophone community, the Southern Cameroonians, be they those who are, who are in the country and those who are out of the country, were clamoring for children to go back to school, coupled with the voices of the international community. Then all of a sudden, the government decides to slam Siseko Ayub Tabe and co. with life imprisonment. I don't understand the urgency of the decision. And like what I tweeted the other day, I don't know who advised government. And I think they're just interested. They too might not want our kids to go back to school. So this is a fundamental problem that we have to address. It also shows that they're trying to send a strong signal to the others that, you know what, we are ready, we are not scared, we would give you the maximum penalty, if and when you break the law. And it might also be a message that they are sending to Camto and MRC people, those who are currently facing trial at the military court, that, you know what, we have given the separatist leaders the life imprisonment, we can equally give you people life imprisonment. And I think the radicals in Mr. Biya's government, they are winning. Those who think that, I was reading the press, I think today, some of them were even saying that they should have executed them. Which to me, it's a farce. I don't understand why somebody who likes this country, who wants to see us make progress, would be wishing that Siseko Ayub Tabe would be sentenced. But I think that that's a strong message also coming from government. You know what, that this is what we are doing, we are ready. But equally also, if you are an analyst that follows the development in this country, everything is done to make Mr. Biya looks good. Everything is done, This is not a country where you talk about strong institutions. We talk about strong individuals, What they are trying to do at the end of the day is for him to come out as the father of the nation, the best man, the person who, because due to his magnanimity, he has decided to pardon them someday, because this solution would be solved politically. It's not going to be solved through the courts. Okay, the military courts can, from whatever they do, convict people for how many years. It's not going to work. it would be a political solution. And the person who has the powers to make that political decision is President Biya.
Yeah.
And when he does it, then members of the ruling party, the choir masters, the Man Fridays, all the sycophants would come out and heap praises on him, you know, for being the visionary, for being the peace-loving father that he's released them without them asking the questions. Why did they arrest them at the first
Now,
time?
do you see a link between this sentencing, which to you, you say it was surprising because you were taken aback with the mutiny that we observed at the level of the Yaoundé Konengi prison and the present Boya prison?
Well, yes, I read what that the Minister of Justice had written to the presidency already to warn them about the situation in the prison. And then also, I think the presidency had given instructions that they should expedite the trial. The problem is that we always like to do fire brigade measures in this country. The fact that we know that justice delayed is justice denied. We understand that the president said they should expedite it, but it doesn't mean expediting it just for expediting it, okay? Due process still has to be followed, okay? I mean, if the case, they had been going through a trial for a while, we're not saying that they should not have sentenced them. But the timing was wrong, you know, just rushing it without ensuring that their defense attorneys, you know, defend them to the best of their abilities. I don't personally think it was the best thing that they could do.
Now, let's look at the judiciary. You say the solution can only be political. Some people think that the judiciary rushed over it to get this potato described as hot from their hands so that the political, the executive can take over from them.
Yeah, well, it's a possibility also. It's another way of looking at it because I think the judiciary, you know, the way the judiciary operates in this country, you understand, there's no separation of power. The executive is the alpha and the omega, is the be all and the end all, you know. So they would just like, okay, we know that it's not something within the domain of the judiciary. Let us pass this sentencing and wait for the politicians to take a decision. But the problem is that they are playing with the lives of people. Okay, yes, you might wait for the politicians to come as a savior, you know, to come as a modern day Jesus Christ to save the people from the heavy sentencing. But during that period, people might have lost their lives. Kids might not be going to school. So it's not as easy as just making such a decision. But I think, yes, they wanted to wash their hands and allow the politicians to decide.
They wanted to play Pontius Pilate.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, we now have a lockdown with conflicting days by different factions of the pro-independence activists. Are these clear signs of a crack division in the camp of the separatists?
Well, you see, Leonard, there have always been factions and divisions amongst those clamoring for separation. It's not today. Since the days of Skakuf, Skapak, and the rest, the IG, and the other ADF, and the other groups that have always been fighting. But it shows how the lust for power, how the strongman syndrome is bringing disrepute into a legitimate cause. It shows that the interest of the people is no longer primordial, that the leaders are not working any longer for the interest of the people. They are working for their individual interests to show how strong they are. Because why would leaders decide that one would say lockdown will start on the 2nd, and another would say it will start on the 26th.
Yeah.
And the question is, what is the purpose of the lockdown? The lockdown serves which interest? It benefits who? The mother living in Bakwele, or living in Way Village, or living in Kwakwa, who is not happy with the decision against Sesekwa Tabe as decided by the military court. That woman is suffering. She's bleeding. Why? Sesekwa would be given life imprisonment. The same woman, you lock down the place, she cannot go to her farm. She cannot do her business. So what is the added value when leadership fails to think out of the box, to re-strategize, to work for the interests of the people. That leadership is a zombie leadership. That leadership is not different from the leadership that we have in this country, in this country ruling Cameroon. Because you ask yourself, what is the added value? If these so-called leaders were on the ground, they live with the people, they go through the sufferings that these people are going through, they will not sit wherever they sit and decide that there should be a lockdown. Because ask you, every time there's been a lockdown, we've lost more people in southern Cameroon. It benefits who? Look at the people who were living in Bamenda, Kumba, and Boya going to East Cameroon. And it defeats our argument of a genocide. For those who use genocide on social media, how can you be running away from a genocide and you're going to the place controlled by the genocidaire? It doesn't make sense. It flies in the face of logic. Who in the international community will believe you when you're crying genocide and people are leaving your area and going to the so-called area where you think that the people committed genocide? So to me, it's a farce.
It's a farce. Barrister, the Center for Human Rights and Democracy for Africa works very closely with communities out there. I don't know whether you got feedback from Bamenda, from the communities in Bamenda and the Southwest region. What are the people saying after the heard of this lockdown?
The past 3 days, we've been doing community services. We offered some food item provided by Soba UK to IDPs. Today, we had a football match with amputees. We provided them jerseys and some food items. So our office on the ground has been working with people, and it's the same message. We are tired of the lockdown. It doesn't work. It affects the people. We don't have the means. We have to leave our various homes to come to La République du Cameroun to survive. How are we going to? I mean, I have somebody who came to my house yesterday and said that they had moved from the village with people in Douala, and they needed me to provide money so that they could buy mattresses. And not everybody has somebody who can afford to give them money to buy mattresses. These are people who are living under horrible... For the past 3 years, they have been suffering, and you are supposed to be their liberator, and you are adding salt to injury. It's very unfortunate.
Now, what measures are being taken by your center? Because I'm sure you monitor some of those who are moving. Are there some measures? Are there some guidelines you are giving them on how to comport themselves, on how to survive as they move over to either the littoral, the center, or the west region?
I had a little chat with Aya this morning, the younger Aya Bini. Yes, and we were chatting. He sent me a message about some IDP people who were now in Douala and the things. So I told him that, well, I wanted to be in Douala today so that we could see them. But he was going to Bafoussam to do some humanitarian services. So tomorrow I'm in Douala. I will try to go to some of the areas where we have predominantly IDPs from the southwest and northwest and try to see how we'll talk to them. We're trying to also liaise with the churches, and various tribal groups to see how they can be welcome in the community. But I would just advise them, and just like, you have to be careful, you have to be cautious. This is like an alien land that they are coming to. Some of them have not been in Douala, Bafoussam. Some of them don't speak French. So they really have to be watchful and be prayerful, because it would be a very difficult period in their lives.
Lockdown is described by those who have called for it as a strategy to force government to maybe take some action in favor of the grieving party. I'm talking about those living in the northwest and southwest region. You have lived previous lockdowns since you live in southwest. What, according to you, has changed, either in advancing the course?
Lockdown should be done in Douala and Yaoundé if they want the government to do something. If it's done in the southwest and the northwest, it's just suffering the people. I've lived in Boya when there's lockdown, but nothing has really changed. More people have died, businesses have been destroyed. But what they are succeeding in doing, they are making the people to rise against them. Because these same people who religiously respected whatever they said are now asking questions. You follow social media. I've seen people who would religiously accept these decisions. Today they are questioning it. The people on the ground are gradually resisting. Places now, when you you said there is a lockdown, some people defied, which is something that did not used to exist, But I think they are overplaying the card, and when you push people to the wall, they have no options than to react.
Okay, they were playing the card and leaders who are now running issues. If from a leader you are doing the pioneer of what we are observing, some of them call you why give directives to make inputs on some of the decisions that have been taken.
No, to be honest, I used to talk to Sisi when it started a lot before arrest. We used to have discussions, we used to bring stuff, we used to argue, but in a very respectful.
We are sorry for the technical faults. We are back to continue our discussions with Barrister Felix Kongo. I was asking whether you get contacted by the leadership of the separatists to instruct or give them input on some of the decisions you take.
Well, to be honest, I used to talk to Siseko a lot. We used to call each other, we communicate, we share ideas. At times we disagreed on, we argued on the phone in a very respectful manner. I've spoken to some of them, Sako, a couple of times, and some other leaders also have called me for us to brainstorm. Not only leaders leading the struggle, but opinion leaders also, and those who have huge presence on social media. I used to have regular discussions with them, and I want just to let them know that some of the decisions they take are anti-people. Some of the decisions they take it doesn't work for the interests of the common man, doesn't work for the interests of the people that we are supposed to be liberating. And I'm always clear with them that we might disagree, but there are issues that we should look at it from a very holistic point of view, and that we should put the interests of the people first, not our own personal interest, not who has more ratings on social media than the other, not which faction of the leadership has more people supporting it. The interest should be the interest of the people of the Southern Cameroons. That should be our primordial goal. Whoever is leading, whoever is a blogger, work for the interest of the people of Southern Cameroons.
Work for the interest of the people. You are a federalist. Do you think that we are where we are because you people have not pushed enough to get a balance?
Well, I think we are where we are because government has been reluctant and unwilling to entertain even the discussion on federalism. We are where we are also in a way because those in the center, because of the fact that the separatists have taken up gun arms and they're threatening everybody, trying to bully, it's either their way or the highway. Not everybody has the guts to come out. Some people have decided to just, maintain a lukewarm attitude or just operate from the background. But when you meet them on a day-to-day basis, they appreciate what you're doing. They appreciate that you speak their mind and that you should keep on doing the good work. But I think it's a problem of the government. The government is really, for the time being, has not shown signs of having to entertain federalism. What happened with the AGC? The government has not been supportive. I mean, after the tour of the Southwest and the Northwest regions by the Prime Minister, what has happened? Nothing. So you cannot really blame those who clamor for federation to be because of because of the inertia that we are where we are. I think the government is the primordial reason why we are where we are.
Now, let's come back to this decision for a lockdown. You say it clearly is not in the interest of the population that's suffering masses. Did you read Mancho BBC, who says that this is only going to affect the poor, and that those who are blessed or the rich are simply going to move their kids and siblings across the Mungo to go to school and maybe rent good houses for them?
Yeah, I read Mancho's tweet. I think I see how Mancho has evolved, matured in his time in jail. I lived in jail with Mancho. I mean, he's a very wonderful young man. Some people only see him and think about the coffin revolution, but Mancho is somebody who is very prayerful. We had our small church in prison. Mancho would sing. He's a choir master. He plays football. He plays volleyball. Very caring. So I've lived with him. And the son used to visit us in jail. Mancho will be the kind of person who would like kids to go back to school. And I'm happy with what he and Ngalim, Felix Ngalim, the communicator signed. But that is what we've been saying, you know, that this no going to school affects the poor. Okay, I want to see anybody in the southern Cameroon who is well-to-do, whose child is not going to school. I have people in some groupings that I am, that they write that kids should not go to school. They send their children to school. Some of them they study in the university. You know, so this hypocrisy is running riot. Some of them have afforded to send their kids to the littoral, to the west and the center. Some of them have sent their kids abroad. So it pains me when I see people saying that kids should not go back to school when their children are going back to school. And in addition, if you look at the economy, I'm not an economist, okay, but if you look at the economy of the southern Cameroons, education contributed a lot to that economy.
That was a key industry.
Okay, that was bigger than CDC ever. So when you destroy, take for example, the woman who was supplying food to SASE, for example, the small things that they were buying around, that increased the multiplier effect. It's no longer there. Okay? When these kids used to come for outing, if we came to Sopo or to Bukwango or to Klaskota, we would buy food and the rest. It contributed in the economy of our place. And now we are taking the monies that we don't have to go and pay fees in East Cameroon. And then look at the fact also, I mean, during my days in SASE, we had Francophones who came to SASE. By the time they left SASE, they were Anglophonized. But what is going to happen tomorrow when our kids are going now to East Cameroon to study? Our kids will be Francophonized. They will come back with an alien culture. It's virtually the Viva and Sam that Mr. B.I. is talking that we are playing in his hand. So, and I ask myself, why are we doing that? Okay? And to my brothers and sisters who are in the diaspora, today you might complain about the education, but most of them had this very education here. Some of them had their jobs through this education. Some of them went and they went to grad school. But before going to grad school, they used the certificates that they had from these universities. The system is not the best. It has lots of problems that we think that it can be better. But for the time being, while trying to fix it, while clamoring to see that it gets better, our children should go to school. I give the example of South Africa. We see when you have a president like Zuma who did not go to school, you see the problem. But I'll tell you, in the Congo, in the east of the Congo, there are times when the warring factions agree that during a period where kids are going to school, there will be no conflict because they themselves needed their children to go to school. So if we have a state today or whatever happens tomorrow, who are those who are going to be the leaders? The future leaders. They are the kids who are living abroad who are going to school, not so. When I went to the refugee camp in Nigeria, the kids, they were looking at means where the kids should go back to school. So these kids will be going back to school, but the kids here cannot go back to school. And I understand the argument that one of those living in the IDP camps in bushes. It's true, okay? Ideally, if I had my way, I would say that we should have the peace process starts before kids go back to school. But this doesn't depend on us. What depends on us is to send the kids to school. The other things depends on the government. Whilst putting pressure on the government, we should, at least for the time being, allow the kids to go to school and keep hammering on the door of the government that you need to find a solution. So the question I ask, if we don't have a solution for the next 10 years, what will happen to these children?
What will happen to these children, Barrister? Now, let's look at the decision-making process for those who have called for the lockdown. Increasingly, like you are saying from the ground, many people are sincerely not happy with the decision. Can we liken this to the same situation that we find where decisions are taken in Yaoundé, implemented in the villages? That's, I'm talking about top-bottom and not bottom-top.
Yeah, well, it's over concentration of powers in the hands of one person or a few people who have arrogated themselves powers, who think that they can speak on our behalf, who would sit somewhere and decide what they want to they want us to do. I know some would say that some of the leaders, some of the people who have arms on the ground, the ones who are making the decision. If you speak to some of those people who have arms on the ground, these are not the people who are supposed to be leading people, okay? The blind leading the blind, as Dickens says in Hard Times, will lead to murdering of the innocents. Their leadership for you to be a leader, you need to have certain traits. You need to look at the bigger picture. You know, you need to take the interest of the people at heart. You are not only looking at the short term. The argument is that we want to live fine. You want to liberate the people. But if you liberate them after 30 years, what becomes of the situation? When there was a war in South Sudan where the children are not going to school, ask yourself the question. I worked in Afghanistan, kids are going to school. In Syria, kids are going to school. In the Central African Republic, kids are going to school. So what kind of leadership? We criticize the president of concentrating powers, but that is the same thing that is happening in the so-called leaders of the struggle. That's why they are always fighting, tussling and jockeying for position and power. Now, I believe that there are still people in the struggle who have good faith, you know, who have the people's interests at heart. I think it's high time that they sit on a table and they rethink some of the decisions, you know. Don't treat the people on ground zero as if they are guinea pigs. That whatever decision you see wherever you are, in whatever place in the diaspora, and you take and you pass, they should take it hook and sinker. They should at least strategize. They should talk to people on the ground and come up with a decision that would be, you know, would be homegrown. Understand that the people at least would consent to and would respect it.
Now, let's look at the situation where this promo that we saw, the pictures that came out of Bamenda and Kumba. Everybody must have gathered their little savings and are coming over this way. Many talk of capital flight.
Yeah, but well, that's it. Some of them will come, they will never go back, okay? I mean, I have my friend who I just came from Boya. He now lives in Douala. Since the crisis, he's not coming back, okay? He used to do small business in Boya. He's now doing it in Douala. And not only capital flight. When you read some of these leaders abroad and they tell people to stock their fridges or their what, they behave as if they have given people monies to buy things and keep in their houses. Where do they get the money from? Do you even know whether the person has a fridge? I mean, the way most people live in Cameroon, you know, they live on a day-to-day basis. Or like 2 days, you know, like if you live in Boya, you would buy food probably, okay, Monday goes down. So you buy on Sunday, you know that you use on Monday, Tuesday, the supermarket you go. So when you lock down the place for 1 week or 2 or 3 weeks, where are they going to have the money to buy the food? So are you thinking about it? The few now that have been doing their petty trade, they will bring the money in East Cameroon and they'll be buying the food here in East Cameroon. They will rent a house here. Our people have now abandoned their houses and they are squatting in Douala, Bafoussam, and Yaoundé. Some of the girls are being sexually abused. There's that child trafficking, there's prostitution, as a result of the fact that, you know, our people have been forced to leave their homes. Don't get me wrong. I'm not blaming just the separatists. No. Okay? Government has a major role to play. But when I look internal to our people, I'm like, we should not be bringing this on our own. We should not be doing that.
Those who are calling for lockdown will tell you that there is a price to pay for anything we believe in, or you think that from your judgment, is just impose pain on the common man?
There's a price to pay, fine. And I tell some of my friends, you know what? I'm a frontline activist. Mm-hmm. I'm not a keyboard activist. I like to go on the ground. I tell some of them, you guys join us. I'm ready to do whatever I was supposed to do. But you cannot sit in the confines of your comfort zone, you know, and dictate to me what I'm going to do. Mm. Yes, there's a price to pay. And I think that we deserve to pay a price. But not the price that kids should not go to school. Not the price of our people being displaced. I still say, leadership should re-strategize. We can still continue the struggle without locking down. I mean, read about revolutionary wars or conflicts or liberation struggles in other parts of the world. The people don't inflict pain on their people, the leadership. I've seen people on Facebook who are separatists, but they too have started like, it's enough is enough. This lockdown is not necessary. So let those who say a price has to be paid, but not a hopeless price. Okay, you have to think. Yes, the fact that we are in a conflict is already a price that we are paid, and I understand that price has to be paid. But I mean, Monday Goes Down is a price that we are paying, which we have accepted to pay. I mean, for example, I've accepted Monday Goes Down as part of life. It's fine. But why is the extra days of lockdown? Why are kids not going to school? I mean, you know, why are these our parents who are managing? Why do you deprive them of doing their petty trading? So that is not the price to pay. You know, that is inflicting pain and suffering on your people.
Now, this decision, you say, runs counter to the expectations of many on ground. This leadership, are they actually conscious of the rights of children to go to school and the possible international implications, especially with respect to these organizations and countries that are expected to one day step in to assist
most of the leaders they are schooled. They've gone to school. I think everybody who's parading himself as who's a leader has gone to school. So they know that. And I think all the leaders have kids. We've seen some of the leaders who take their kids to school. We've watched some of them celebrating their certificates, their awards, their graduation. You know, so they cannot pretend or they cannot have, they cannot feign pretense or ignorance that they don't know the importance of schooling, you know, and the importance of education is very important. It's not just about having a job, but it's about educating the person. I mean, taking the person out of kind of mental slavery. So for them, I don't think that they don't know the importance. I think that most of them want to prove a point. And when people are short of ideas, they just follow the crowd. School boycott is like the thing. But I believe that we have very intelligent people in the struggle that if they sit down and they rethink and re-strategize, they can find other solutions and other ways of holding government to account without necessarily with the school boycott. The international community also is trying, because I think that if you follow UNICEF report and Madame Allegra, the head of the UN in Cameroon, they also have been talking a lot about kids to go back to school, you know. And if you start preventing children from going back to school, if you read some of the provisions of the ICC, the Rome Statute, some of these things might constitute some egregious crimes that some people might be held responsible someday.
Okay, held responsible. This lockdown, one of the fallouts of the sentencing. Why do you think that the government would turn a blind eye to the possible disruption of the back-to-school campaign and then engage in this action at this time?
You see, anybody who takes this government serious, the person is not serious.
Okay, you think the government is not serious?
No, the government is not serious. You see, and I will use, I'm a fella fan, okay? I like to talk about the zombie. They are zombies ruling this country, okay? And that it's a zombie leadership. So they don't think. You know, they say zombie just knows one way. Go and kill, the zombie goes and kill. So I don't know who is their advisors. Because no sane person will understand the logic of their decisions. Okay, civil society started the campaigns to go to school. Then their ministers and their politicians came, and then they torpedoed everything. They start politicizing everything. Everybody is trying to outsmart everybody to show to Mr. President Biya that they are the ones who are fighting for kids to go back to school. And then bam, all of a sudden, government decides to do what it's doing. I mean, is it that they really don't care whether our children go back to school? Is it that they did it without any consideration? But, you know, like somebody said, if you ask questions about Cameroon and you understand it, it means you did not ask the right question.
Should the AGC actually regret their efforts? You, as a person, you have been working, doing some international lobbying. Do you think that some of you guys have been dealt with a very big blow?
No, as an eternal optimist, you're not doing it because you wanted the government to look good. You are not doing it because you wanted to please somebody. You're doing it because for the kids. You're doing it for the children. You're doing it because you want peace. You're doing it because you want to leave a legacy for posterity, a better world than you made it. So it's not, I mean, our activities would not be determined by the response of the government, not so. Because if you're counting on the government, then you will not be able to do anything. So I think those who clamored for the campaigns for kids to go back to school, those who are advocating for peace, reconciliation, and dialogue, they do it because they believe in it. They are not doing it because, I mean, whoever would have been president tomorrow, and if we were still in this situation, some of these people would still be doing the campaign. But I think also that, in a way, you're right, it's psychologically dealt a psychological blow to everybody who was in the middle. Everybody who wanted us to find a solution. I think most people got up that morning. I spoke to a couple of people across the board, Francophones and Anglophones, and everybody was like, what is this government? What is their game plan? What do they really want to do? And they keep everybody in the dark with
Now, if you think that it's a government blunder and a lockdown is called as a retaliatory move, not only to the sentencing, but to stall back to school, how is the government targeted in this move, lockdown? How does it really affect the government?
Well, that's the thing, because if you look at the people in government and you ask yourself that, okay, fine, there is a lockdown, the Bayam Selam, the petty traders, most of them are well-to-do. So how is it going to affect them? They have the fridges, they have the food, they will stock it. They will go about their normal business. And no matter whether there's lockdown or not, the military would still patrol the place. So those who are in control would go around about their business as if there was nothing. I mean, I live in Boya. When there's lockdown, you see the military passing, the governor, the GO, they will go to places that they are still supposed to go. It's the common man, you know, because most of those people who make this decision, they have their private vehicles, they have their bodyguards. So if they want to leave Boya and go to Limbe, they will go. So at the end of the day, how is it affecting them? You know, yes, you want to disrupt the economy, you call it economic sabotage. Is there an alternative plan that you give to your people? You know, if you are sabotaging the economy, what is the plan? What is the plan B that you've put in place so that your people should survive? Because when you say you are making a place ungovernable, you are making it unlivable to your people. So what is the plan to make the place livable to your people? What means did we put in place to have, let's say, raise billions where we would have provided food or what food and non-food items to our people to stay back home without moving out of the town? We just get up one morning or a week and we tell people that there will be lockdown. We don't care whether they have money. How are they prepared?
Now, we know that there are threats on some of us by some activists who say that anybody who talks about back to school becomes an enabler and becomes a key target. Are you aware of that? And why do you still keep talking about back to school?
Well, the thing about it's easy to tag people whatever names. The question, and I talked to some of my friends, you called an enabler, what have you, who is a non-enabler, done to the people? can you tell us what you have done to the people of Southern Cameroon, rather than, apart from wreaking havoc in their lives? What have you done? And we are not doing it because we want any reward personally. Okay? Some of us are already educated, so we're doing it because we believe that we owe a duty of care to our children, to the younger generation, that we are doing what is right. And in a democracy that I know had existed in West Cameroon or Southern Cameroon, we had divergent opinions. We respected those we disagreed with. But we cannot be in an era where somebody thinks that it's his way or the highway. Nobody is more Southern Cameroonian than the other. Nobody is more Anglophone than the other, okay? All of us are from that entity called Southern Cameroons. And the fact that you might be in the CPDM, or you are in the opposition, or you believe in separation, you believe in federalism, you believe in unity state, all of us have the same interests, the same vested interest over the Southern Cameroon. So trying to bully people, and they are weak. To me, weak people always try to bully people, okay? If you have the force of argument, I used to be my SCN sympathetic days, and that motto, the force of argument, is always strong, because I believe in the force of argument. You need to argue why you think he should not go back to school, but don't try to bully away, because we are losing our target. We are fighting each other. Go on social media. We spend our time insulting each other. It's now an Anglophone on Anglophone violence, or a Southern Cameroon on Southern Cameroon's violence. The so-called target, we have abandoned the target and we're fighting each other. And to me, that's very disappointing.
Okay. Somebody is watching us from Tico. He says, good evening, Leo. Great guest you have got there. Let the barrister talk about CDC workers who are completely frustrated in debt. Andreas is writing from Tico. Have you made moves to talk with the CDC workers? What is their situation now, especially with the increasing lockdown?
Leonard, I had not only talked, I had interviewed CDC workers whose feet and hands were chopped off. I have them. I have it on record. Very horrible stories, okay? I have them on record that I interviewed them. I have met a few of my friends who work with CDC, okay, who are in senior management and who are telling me the dire nature of the situation. I have spoken to laborers who can no longer feed their children. And this is something that I am asking myself the question. Why do you want to destroy CDC? For every 10 workers in CDC, 9 is a Southern Cameroonian, okay? For every 10, 9 is a Southern Cameroonian. When you destroy CDC and PAMOL, who is benefiting from that? It's not the government. Yes, the government is a big structure. They can manage. But these hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of workers who are our brothers and sisters, they cannot afford to put food on table. They cannot send their kids to school. They cannot take care of their medical situation. So at the end of the day, is that kind of decision not anti-people? Let's assume that we want to control CDC. Can we take over CDC and manage it? You understand? So that we will still employ the people, we will manage the resources and sell the produce somewhere. Can we do that to PAMOL? It's better. Because if we destroy CDC and PAMOL and all the other agro industries or corporations we have in the Southern Cameroons, if we have independence tomorrow, what are we going to do?
Now, another televiewer, because some of them wrote to me that they would want to ask some questions to you. Barrister, good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, Barrister Bala. To send his Ayuka Sisiku and the other Naira 10 is an error that will have a time bomb effect. I don't know whether you believe in that. Barrister Betty says, dear Barrister, can you confidently assert that a majority stand for federation? Secondly, take away the guns from the streets, and without campaign, even goats and dogs will go to school. Can you send your kids in the face of the gun? St. Derek is writing, and he goes, do you choose an illiterate who is alive or an educated corpse?
Well, the first thing is that we've not done any opinion poll about whether it's federation or separation, okay? And let's not forget there's a silent majority. And I don't have a problem for those who are clamoring for separation. I always tell you that if you give me independence today, I'll take it, okay? But no independence after 3 million or 2 million people dying. I will not take that. And the other question that he was saying, it was that whether dogs, or he said something about guns.
If you take away guns, yes, people would spontaneously go to school.
Yeah, no, that's why I said if it depended on me today, I would have said the military should go back to the barracks. We should have a ceasefire so that we can have an enabling and convenient environment. Look at the IDPs, try to ensure that they start reconstructing their villages. But it doesn't depend on me. I'm looking at the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground is that this struggle will continue, not so the conflict will go on. It will go on for longer, 10, 20, 25 years. If we follow history, what is happening in other countries, what will happen to kids during those periods? And if I have a kid who's going, I'll send my kid to school also to go, because yes, it's true that somebody says you should prefer an illiterate alive, and no, these kids go to church, they do petty business, they do other things. Okay, why is it that only going to school becomes a problem? I mean, today in Sunday you saw children going to church. You went there, you see them in Sunday school. So why, if both parties decide that there should be school, the parents would decide on the security situation. You understand? I don't think we should not be patronizing parents to tell them that their kids, let them make the decision. Let them decide that today is a day that I will not send my kid to school. On Mondays, for example, I don't go to my office in Solidarity of the Ghost Town. On Tuesday, I go to my office. So I make the decision. So allow the parents to decide whether their kids should go to school or not. Not somebody sitting somewhere and speaking for that parent.
Okay, you think they are being coerced? Okay, the international community recently, the U.S. Senate passed another resolution. We've heard resolution after resolution. Some people think that the international community is playing some hypocrisy, claiming to be sympathetic, but never really concerned. Or you have worked with the United Nations, you are reasserting that this issue needs to be fixed by Cameroonians.
The UN is a state-centric organization, meaning that the states members, they decide what is going to happen. So, and there is a tendency of not trying to rock the boat. Okay. You understand? And there are other issues in the world also. We should not think that we are the only crisis in this world. There are lots of other crises. Okay? There's Central Africa, for example, and crisis in the Sudan, just for example. There's Syria, there's Afghanistan, there's Iraq. There are other crises in the world. I am not saying that they should not intervene or they should not find a solution. But I think this is an artificial crisis or man-made crisis that Cameroonians can work out something. I think that if the government has a good faith, and the leaders also of the separatist movement, all of them have a good faith, we can at least, zero down on our differences and try to find a solution. Yes, the international community also has tried. Let's not forget that they've tried. I mean, but the solution will be internal. It will not come from them. It will come from us. And at best, if you look at our regional organization, the AU, that I think it's not doing a lot, the AU should sit up and try to find a solution.
When you say the solution has to come from within the country, you say internal. What should the government be doing? What should the civil society, the political class, what should they be doing at this juncture? Because as we speak, you say moving people over this way is francophonizing them, is capital flight, and that they need to go to school. On the other side, people say we need this to force the government to act.
Well, which government? This stubborn government, what have we done that we force them to act? I think the civil society has to be empowered. Civil society has to play a bigger role, in trying to find a solution. But also both parties are talking across each other. They need to start talking to each other. You understand? Nobody should hold. When you hold a particular position and you say either my position or nothing, then you're not ready for a solution. But if you have your people at heart, the people who are suffering, then at times we find solutions. Not that we are weak, but that because we think that we can put an end to the suffering. So it will be time that the government would have to shift from its position, and the separatists also would have to shift from their position, because that's the whole thing about dialogue and negotiations. Everybody will give and take.
When you say empowering the civil society, what concretely should the civil society be doing?
Unfortunately, there's no means to finance civil society. But if you speak to some civil society leaders that are doing a lot of job from their own small funds that they can raise, to go about preaching peace, to talk about dialogue. Some of them have even attempted to meet some of the separatist leaders to talk to them on the need that they should tone down some of their rhetoric, the hate speech, for example. Just the conferences or workshops that have been done about hate speech by civil society, it has helped drastically to tone down hate speech. That is something that civil society is doing. Training people on mediation. Okay, for example, if a civil society were working on coming up with a handbook on the ABCs on the laws of wars, for example, about war crimes. I've spoken to some of the people who are in the bushes. They don't understand that some of the things they do might amount to war crimes. So just a booklet, a handbook, probably in English, French, or pidgin or something.
You say war crimes. What are some of these things that amount to war crimes?
No, let me give you an example. Well, the first thing is that for there to be a war crime, international humanitarian law says you need to ascertain that there is a war. But if you follow the ICRC, which is like the barometer of international humanitarian law, they still have not defined what is happening in Cameroon as a war. But let's assume for intellectual purposes that this was a war. They are saying, for example, if you attack a school, if you at a school, for example, it would amount to a war crime. If you attack a church, if you attack somebody who is not taking part in active hostility, as they put it in the language of the 1977 Geneva Convention, somebody who's hors de combat, that will amount to a war crime. You remember what happened in Mali when the Timbuktu, the historic site, was attacked? These guys were tried, not so. Recruitment of child soldiers, Lubanga. Lubanga was given 15 years at the ICC. Dilo Lubanga was given 15 years at the ICC for recruiting of child soldiers, using rape as a tool of war. These bushwife marriages, all of these would morph into war crimes. For example, attacking targets. For example, you attack a school, you attack a hospital, and trying to terrorize the civilian population. These are things that, if you explain to some of them, they might understand that, we are not supposed to do these things.
Okay. Somebody says, what is the root cause of this crisis? Sure, should we still be talking about this one? This one says, I believe Ayub Tabe's diaspora followers weakened his authority by sacking and dismissing him while undergoing trial. The diaspora has misrepresented the cause for selfish reasons. No one can clearly tell us where we started, where we are, and our achievement so far. Do you think there is a problem of accountability as far as this is concerned? But my last question to you is, strictly speaking, do you think the environment in the Northwest and Southwest regions are good enough for classes to kickstart?
Let me just go back to diaspora.
Okay.
It's not everybody in the diaspora who is a bad person. And we cannot pretend the enormous contribution done by the diaspora to the economy of the southern Cameroon. I mean, there are people who have done wonderful things and that they are still willing to do more, just the bad governance. Okay. There is fight in the whole struggle. Accountability has been an issue. Okay, people cannot account the monies that was contributed, and I think also that has led to some apathy. There is, in terms, the security situation is not the best. In some parts, kids can go to school, because in some of the towns we clearly know that kids can go to school. In some of the places, it's not. But that's why I said allow the parents to make the decision. If I have a child in a place where I think that the security situation is not good, I will not send the child to school. But if I'm in a place where I think the security situation is good, I would send the child to school. It's not everywhere in the southern Cameroon that kids cannot go to school.
Okay. Barrister, this one. Sir, please tell the barrister, what about the schools that have been burned down? What is the population going to do?
Yeah, I understand, and I've said several times that I understand that there are people in IDP camps. I've gone to those camps, okay? But also in those camps, there's a way that we can start doing some kind of informal education. I spoke to Plan International. I had a meeting with them. They are willing and ready to help if the security situation, if the separatists and government can give them safe passage, they can do something. And for those whose schools have been burned, I really empathize with them, But my thing is that, notwithstanding the fact that some schools have been burned, okay, every child should not go to school. I said no. Because that's the same argument. Even prior to the crisis, not every child, or not all the children were going to school. Not so. Some were not going to school. But we can start the pilot project with the schools that are available, whilst reconstruction can be done in the places that schools have been burned, or while some of the kids can be moved to safer zones to go back to school. You know, I don't have a magic solution, but I just believe that it's a fundamental human right for kids to go to school. It's a fundamental right for kids to have education. And that's the thing. There are other shortcomings, you know. We've never attained the goal of free education. We've never attained the goal of 100% education. I mean, in the US, not every kid is going to school or will go to school. But let us try to see that the maximum number of children that can go to school, they go to school.
Okay. We are glad you accepted to be part of the show this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Televiewers, we end our discussions with Barrister Kongo Felix Agbo. He is the Director of Visionary CEO of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa. He is equally the former president of the Faco Lawyers Association. He is the pioneer president of the defunct Band Consortium. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.